child have died during the demolition of a World War II monument in Georgia. The removal has caused huge controversy, with many saying it's disrespectful to the Soviet war heroes who died defeating the Nazis. Now the two deaths have only added to the widespread anger, as Irina Galushka reports.
An act of political defiance now turned to tragedy. Debris from the 25-meter-tall war memorial went flying during demolition, killing a woman and a small girl. Two others are in a critical condition in hospital.
As a result of the demolition work at the memorial, 2 people have been killed. According to a preliminary investigation, the tragedy happened due to violations of the safety rules.
Kutaisi authorities said the monument was beyond repair after being vandalized in the 1990s. It was also blocking the construction of a new parliament building and had to be removed. Mikhail was one of the men who took part in the construction of the monument 20 years ago, when Georgia was part of the Soviet Union.
This is an act of vandalism. I remembered how 30 years ago me and another person from the city council picked up a place for the monument. We gathered materials for its construction. The entire city took part in helping to construct it.
The decision to demolish the monument sparked an outcry across Georgia, with many seeing it as a sign of President Saakashvili's desire to do away with anything connecting Georgia to Russia.
It's a continuation of the propaganda of the campaign of Mr. Saakashvili. This campaign is against so-called post-Soviet symbols.
Russia has been vocal about the removal of the monument. Foreign Ministry has called this an act of state vandalism, insulting to any civilized person. Earlier on Saturday, Georgia's Foreign Ministry said the monument was not being destroyed, but will undergo what they called rehabilitation. Several hours later, it hit the ground in a cloud of smoke. The situation in Kutaisi echoes one in another former Soviet republic. 2 years ago, Estonian authorities relocated the statue of the bronze soldier from its location in the center of the capital, Tallinn. The removal led to street protests in which over 1,000 people were arrested and one ethnic Russian was killed. Mikhail says the demolition of the monument is a worrying sign for Georgians, even though the government has promised to rebuild it in a new location.
This monument is dedicated to those who fought against fascism. To remove it essentially means to support fascism in the 21st century.
President Saakashvili has cut short his trip to Copenhagen for the climate summit after hearing about the accident.
The president hopes the investigation will soon clear up the details of the tragic event, which took place in Kutaisi, and soon the guilty will face justice.
But his reaction may just be too late.
A move that many here saw as a sign of disrespect to the country's past has now turned into tragedy. But President Saakashvili has made one thing clear. His sights are set on making Georgia into a European country by severing ties with Russia, even if it means turning his back on the Georgian nation. Irina Galushka, RT, Tbilisi, Georgia.
Meanwhile, 3 young Georgians have been released by South Ossetia. 2 of the freed were arrested in the South Ossetian capital, Tskhinval, while carrying explosives and sentenced to 12 months in prison. The third person is a 16-year-old boy held for illegally crossing the border. The release is seen as a goodwill gesture and follows the visit of Georgia's former Prime Minister and opposition leader Zurab Nagaideli. The move raises hopes Tbilisi may respond by pardoning some of the 28 South Ossetians it is holding. Kiev's official line was that it was genocide targeted against the Ukrainians, but this new account says it was a disaster for all Soviet people. His views have been branded a threat to national security by the country's authorities. Alexei Yurashevsky reports.
After dozens of articles, political analyst Viktor Pirozhenko could be best described as the hard man of modern-day Ukraine. His strident opinions have caused mixed reactions.
I criticize the country's current leadership for openly ethnic discrimination policies. I criticize them for reviving neo-Nazism in the country and falsifying history. And of course, I bring facts to support my point of view.
In one of his articles, Pirozhenko focused on the disputed cases of the disastrous 1930s famine in Ukraine. Kiev accuses the Soviet leadership of deliberate genocide directed against Ukrainians. Many historians in and beyond Ukraine stress the tragedy concerned the whole of the USSR. Pirozhenko says Kiev's spin is aimed at turning modern-day Ukraine against Russia. Now the Ukrainian Security Service has got into the act, claiming such views are against the law. The SBU turned to the State Commission on Ethics and Morality to determine whether that was so.
Just several days after the Ukrainian Security Service, the SBU, initiated probes into Viktor Pirozhenko's articles, the Commission came out with a statement which was published on its website. Here it says that Viktor Pirozhenko's articles, like the New Ukrainian History as the Operation on Changing National Conscience, are violating Ukrainian law and can even pose threat to national security.
President Yushchenko had proposed criminalizing those who deny the 1930s famine was genocide against Ukrainians. But that never became law. So Pirozhenko does not quite understand what he's done wrong.
This Commission for Ethics and Morality monitors the media to prevent the popularization of violence and pornography. I have no idea what my articles have to do with that. They are historical analysis based on facts and have no calls for violence, separatism or revolution.
Vladimir Kornilov heads the Kiev-based CIS country's institution. He says his center has also been a target of the security services.
The head of the SBU once said that our center needed to be closed. This happened after we held a conference in Kiev on the 1930s famine. The paradox is that President Yushchenko called for thorough discussions on this issue, and then they wanted to punish us for the conference.
But Kornilov says the case of Viktor Pirozhenko is nevertheless a mystery to him.
Pirozhenko has been very balanced in his works. There are many writers who aren't as balanced.
For the time being, there is no legal action pending against Pirozhenko, but the incident has got other Ukrainian historians and analysts thinking they could be the next to come under fire. Alexei Rashevsky, RT, Kiev, Ukraine.
It's just gone 17 minutes past the hour. Let's take a look at other stories making news around the world. Wintry weather has again brought travel misery across much of Europe and North America. These pictures from Germany are fairly typical of what's happening, with slippery roads leading to many accidents overnight and major delays. Also, a massive winter storm has paralyzed the central east coast of the U.S., forcing most flights to be canceled there. Devout Catholics can now use the web to send Christmas messages to Pope Benedict XVI. The site called Pope to You was set up by the Vatican and allows followers to send photographs alongside personal messages. The leader of the Catholic Church also has his own YouTube channel. Now, it's the time of year when many animals are burrowing deep underground to survive the long, cold winter. Well, it's a process which has inspired Russian scientists to make some new exciting discoveries. Studies of ground squirrels in hibernation suggest that these small animals could hold the key to immortality. RT's Yegor Piskunov has the details.
Imagine if people could be frozen so that one day they can wake up hundreds of years in the future, or being able to sleep for decades while traveling to distant galaxies. Of course, while that may sound like science fiction, as it turns out, some of these ideas may be possible to turn into reality. And one animal's special ability may hold the key.
When ground squirrels hibernate, apparently they develop some kind of a chemical which allows them to cool down, slow all processes in their bodies, and then, after some time, return to normal and wake. And while sleeping this way, they're not vulnerable to viruses or even radiation.
Many creatures hibernate to be able to survive without food or water for long periods, like bears and hedgehogs. But out of all warm-blooded animals, only the ground squirrel's body temperature can drop below zero, while its heart slowly continues to beat and its lungs breathe. Cryopreservation is already being used to store live stem cells, blood, or semen, and studies on other tissues are continuing.
Cells are frozen and kept in temperatures dropping to nearly minus 200 degrees centigrade, and the idea is that they continue to live after they're unfrozen. Scientists say the substances produced by ground squirrels to hibernate may increase the cell's chances to survive, but it seems that these small animals may not only hold the key to overcoming scientific challenges, but solving big problems in medicine as well.
Experts say when the human body temperature drops to 27 degrees Celsius or around 80 degrees Fahrenheit, the heart fails. But when in hibernation, a ground squirrel's heart simply slows from around 300 beats per minute to just a few, although crucially, it never stops.
I'm sure there are several factors that protect this animal's heart. If we study and determine them, it may help us create new drugs against heart conditions.
Scientists say the chemicals developed by ground squirrels may also be produced by other animals or even humans. So perhaps each one of us may already have an ultimate survival tool right inside our bodies, but we simply haven't learned how.